Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner podcast. I'm Dylan, I'm your host, and today, guys, we're going to be talking about Revit, automation, and soft skills. I know those are two kind of opposite ends of the spectrum, but with Revit automation, you can unlock the soft skills for engineering excellence. You got to remember, at the end of the day, we deal with people. People is our business. We deal with our clients. We deal with our teams. We deal with a lot of people. So even though you're an engineer and want to just be in a corner and left alone to solve the world's problems, you got to ultimately interact with other people. So some of this research that I'm going to be talking about today comes from Siemens on like 26,000 jobs, which is quite a few, emphasizing complex problem solving and communication, noting how manual tasks like those in Revit often stifle these soft skills. Basically, you don't have the time to train your people on how to talk to people, so you deal with a bunch of people that can't talk to people. Very simple, right? Maybe a little confusing. But at the end of the day, what this comes down to is when you save your team a whole bunch of time, it basically opens up the availability for them to train in other skills. Now, I'm going to talk today about soft skills in particular, but this goes across the board to any skill that you might want your team to learn, right? How to handle basically objections, how to solve problems on the job site, how to handle like client is mad at you for whatever reason, how to handle all of that. These are huge, right? So at the end of the day, this comes down to like basically just adopting that like new technology and workflows, right? We're not still riding horses, we are driving cars. Now, unless you go to ride a horse in the mountains or whatever, but for the most part, we all drive a car to work, and that's how we get around. We don't ride horses and all the other things that come with horses, right? We're not shoveling crap out of the streets to get through them. So when we talk about manual tasks consuming 40% of time, this is again from Siemens and Archer Labs, like data extraction, is we have this huge like soft skills gap. And effectively like all these manual tasks just drain the energy out of everybody. So by the time they get around to like creative or tasks that need a lot of cognitive load, they're basically not effectively done. So some of the broad skills that are needed is just like how to communicate with clients, right? And a lot of this goes into pre-work where communications just break down prior to meetings. And a lot of this, Siemens covered in their report, where just a lot of miscommunication, worsening teamwork, is the number one problem across like all engineering firms. And so with a lot of this, if you're able to put a little bit of pre-work into like meetings, what your actual problems are, make a list. One thing that I found myself doing is, I start to have problems or have questions, is instead of, and sometimes I still do this, like immediately call the people that I'm doing to work through with it on everything, is instead I hit pause on calling them, write all my questions down, either in a Word doc or email or just by hand. Say, hey, here's the 5-10 things that we need to address, write them down. Here's what I think the solutions are. Then when I have a conversation, it's a lot easier of like basically a yes, no, whatever through that. And then that ultimately solves a lot of problems. It saves everybody's time, and it's clear communication as to what you need, versus immediately going for help. And usually there's this whole thing in the industry too. Like a lot of people, either they're on one of two sides of the spectrum. They either ask way too many questions, or they're on the other side where they don't ask any. Honestly, most people would rather have you asking questions than not any, because when you don't ask questions, and things just don't get done, then it creates a lot more problems than if you'd asked a ton of questions. That people are like, all right, just write all of these down before you come and talk to me so we can bang them all out at once, versus like you interrupting me every hour, right? A lot simpler to deal with. So as we like go through this, it's all these soft skills, but what does a soft skill really mean? It's how do you talk to people, right? And this can be all the way down to like, what is your tone, right? How loud or soft do you speak to somebody? What is the cadence that you speak to somebody? Is it really fast and you're just trying to get a bunch of words out really quickly? Or is it like really slow, man? And it's hard for you to get anything out. And everybody's just like, dude, spit it out. Like, let's get on with the show. So when we talk about like soft skills, communication, it's all those, the words you use, the pace that you're doing them at, how you come across, gestures that you might make, all of that can be trained. And then it's really how quickly do you adopt to using it. So as we go through a lot of this, these interpersonal skills, soft skills, how to talk to people, future proofing, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, what does this mean? It's like, have a list of things you want to say to a person before you go to a meeting, understand what you want out of them. And then a lot of it is, be nice. Like, don't yell, be direct, but don't be forceful, be kind and courteous, but also strong enough that you need an answer to the questions that you have, right? You can't leave there without getting an answer, but don't be like, you mother, get out of here, like don't do any of that type of stuff, right? Be calm, courteous, and just say, hey man, we need answers to these kinds of things. These are the 4 questions that I have. This is all I need. And I can, commence with my work. Really simple stuff, but amazingly very hard. Most people haven't learned this stuff or how to talk to anybody. And so the reason they're called soft skills is because usually there's not a great training manual for it. You need to have a lot of examples of a lot of scenarios on how to communicate, how to have a conversation, how to get through this. But the more that you can break this down for your team of like, this is how we talk to people in meetings, this is how we run effective meetings, the better off you're going to do. Now, every person's going to have their own little flair to it, and that's fine. We don't need to be complete robots, but we do need to have like a way to address people in meetings primarily, right? That's how we in the construction industry interact with everybody else, is we have a list of things, we go through it, talk about it, get answers, move on. A lot of this, takes time. Like you're training one person one-to-one, and it's not like you can give them a video and by watching more videos, you can become a better speaker. You actually have to speak to become a better speaker. So for a lot of your team, it's going to be one-on-one, and there needs to almost be a specific person to like do this, but like coach them through like, how do you run a meeting? Okay. Again. Like you got to run through it until they get it flawlessly. You cut out the ums and ahs out of their speech. Now for me, I still have a lot of these in how I talk, but they've been greatly reduced over the years. So for a lot of you, it's going to be sitting one-on-one with somebody, going through, analyzing their speech, getting the patterns right, having basically a speech coach for everybody and how you run meetings, because your whole business is predicated on talking to people. And if your guy is bad, it could lose you a client, and that could be millions of dollars worth of work because somebody doesn't know how to run a simple meeting, answer the phone, have a conversation. They piss these guys off. But this is all trainable skills. Like you learned how to hold a meeting from somebody. You might have picked it up in sitting in a lot of meetings, figuring out what to do, what not to do. But at the end of the day, it is a coachable, trainable skill. We didn't learn to run meetings coming out of the womb. So like it is for sure a trainable and coachable skill. And that's what like a lot of this comes down to. Like I can go into, training and all the soft skills, but a lot of it, the things that can't be done on video, like, so for AI automation or Revit automation, like we do at Kowabunga Studios, like I can give you a video and like, hey, here's how to place devices. Here's what the receptacles portion of Surfboard does, right? Here's how to place one receptacle on each wall. Here's how to place a switch next to a door. Here's how to put lights into a room. Like I can go through that. It's about an hour to fully run through everything, but super trainable, right? Done on a video. Somebody can watch that and replicate it pretty easily. because that's the output that we want, right? Is can you easily replicate this thing that we're trying to teach you? Some things like learning Revit, learning software, learning how to type could be done via software. Now with AI and some of this and coaching somebody on how their speech is, their speech patterns, that can be done probably with some AI and some software and a speech coach. But for today, a lot of it is done like going to be done one-on-one. So one is creating a curriculum to run through for people, how you talk to people, how you address them, how you help basically coach somebody to run their own meetings. So when we go back a couple podcast episodes ago, we talked about, training people running meetings. Like this is one that's going to be done in person, one-on-one. But once they know it and have that skill, like they can go and do it on their own, right? And something like that is in running meetings, leading a group is very personal. If you invested in someone and gave them that skill, they are going to be immensely grateful for you teaching them that thing. And honestly, like that's how you build loyalty to people, is give them a skill, train them in something, improve how they do things. And at the end of the day, like you can't buy that, right? Like that's a huge amount of loyalty that you're going to get from somebody because you poured into them, you made them great. Now they might not be with your firm forever, but they will forever speak well about you and your firm. And that type of goodwill in the market is, again, something that's very, very, like you can't buy it. You have to live it, be it, do it. So at the end of the day, when you start automating, how you do things in Revit and other automation solutions that you implement in your firm, this gives you the time to improve your people, their soft skills, how they work, how they collaborate. And at the end of the day, it's going to make your team much more effective, a lot more potent, and just better people, right? Who couldn't use some better people in their organization? So guys, that's going to be this episode of the Construction Corner Podcast. Until next time.